So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining this first EFID webinar. We hope that it's the first of a very successful series of webinars. Before we started, I just wanted to outline some features of the Zoom platform that we are using. First of all, as I said, you are muted by default, but there are some ways to share your thoughts, and especially if you have questions. There is a button down on your screen which says Q&A. So if you click on that button, you can ask your questions at any time during the webinar, and well, I'll make sure to check the questions, and also we will try to respond to answer to all your questions. We'll do our best. If you have any urgent remark and you wish to speak, so to ask your questions live, you can raise your hand. There is a button for the attendees at the bottom of your screen with a hand. You can click on raise your hand, and I will see that you have an urgent remark to make, so I will allow you to talk. Anyway, even after the webinar, in case you have questions, you can always email us. You have all our contacts. One more thing, at the top right of your screen, you have a button to go full screen. If you want to see us better, you can enlarge the window of the Zoom meeting and go full screen. Yeah, before we go to the agenda for today's meeting, I think it's good if we introduce our panelists for today. So maybe you can just say very briefly who you are, so that all the attendees joining the webinar today know who is online and who is going to talk. Maybe, yeah, we can start from here. Saida.
I'm Saida Sakari from King Baudouin Foundation, and we are part of the EFID initiative.
Thank you. Emma?
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Emma Harte. I work for Organization Development Support, and I'm part of the consultancy team that will be facilitating the co-creation of the quality framework.
Well, my name is Luisa Marino. I'm a program manager of EFID, and I work for the network of European foundations. And I give you now the floor to the Italian and the Bulgarian friends, because we have a special joint meeting today, as our panelists from Rifugio are accompanied by the Bulgarian Awardee Foundation Compassion Alzheimer Bulgaria. So I give you the floor, Molly and Marcello. Oops. No?
Hey.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Molly Tyler Childs, and I'm a social educator at the Rifugio Carlo Alberto here in Italy.
Hello, my name is Marcello Galetti. I am the manager of Rifugio.
Good afternoon, I'm Tanya Tisheva, and I'm project manager at Foundation Compassion Alzheimer Bulgaria. We are part of the EFID network and the EFID Awards.
Hello, very glad to be here. I'm Genoveva Tisheva. I'm member of the board of directors of Compassion Alzheimer Bulgaria. Yes, here, Italian colleagues.
Hello, I'm Valentina Mazarova, Foundation Alzheimer Bulgaria in Varna.
Okay, it's done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now we pass the stage to Anne-Berenice. Anne-Berenice, we can't hear you. No, there must be a problem with the microphone of Anne-Berenice. Now you're muted. Yes, try now.
I'm Anne-Berenice Sinzak from Fondation Médéric Alzheimer. I'm also part of EFID initiative, so nice to be here today with you.
Okay, thank you, Anne-Berenice. And last but not least, we go to Rosien.
My name is Rosien Herweijer, and I work, I'm a freelance consultant, and I work together with Emma on facilitating the co-creation of the quality framework.
Okay, thank you very much, all the panelists. So we now show the agenda for today's meeting. It's going to be 1 hour meeting, webinar, and in particular, Saida will outline the agenda.
Okay, so we will have a short introduction to EFID, as I think many of you already knows what we are doing, but we will explain again the objectives, and we will also have Anne-Berenice who will explain what webinars we are intending to organize. And then, of course, there is our keynote, the Rifugio with Molly and their project, and also then the keynote with Emma here and Rosien about what we are intending to do with the quality framework. So very short. Again, about the EFID phase that we have now, starting since 2019. We have, and that is very good news, we have also a new partner on board. Next to Robert Bosch Foundation, who was one of the first foundation who had the initiative in their strategic scope. We have now also Porticus Foundation, who also is a new partner, but also has a lot on dementia, a lot on framing on dementia, and we are happy to have them also on board with Barbara and Anne-Katrien Kluze. So Barbara van der Mark and Anne-Katrien Kluze. So I think also Anne-Katrien is there also as an attendee with us today. So it's also interesting to know that they just launched a big campaign on the framing on the illness of dementia. We will, in this phase, we will put a lot of energy on what the value is of the voice of people with dementia themselves. So the expertise, and that's really important in everything what we want to do, starting from 2019 until the end of 2020, we will have more initiatives on the voice of people with dementia, and we want them also to be the co-creators in everything what we will do. So everything concerning also in the issue of the quality and the intervention is really to have them empowered as the expert what the quality framework is and how their experience is valued within that framework. We will also continue to work on promoting the dementia-friendly community approach, and we will also continue to disseminate the good practices of the awardees, like we do now today with the Rifugio as one of the highlights of one of the projects that is interesting to start with. And the next webinars will be on different issues, but I think Anne-Berenice will explain shortly what are the different webinars that will follow the first one, this one. Anne-Berenice?
Thank you, Saida. Anne-Berenice?
So for the introduction to webinar series, this is the first of the series of webinars on different topics related to dementia, obviously. And this webinar and few others are restricted to EFID awardees and stakeholders, and others will be open to large public. And we hope that you find this tool useful to exchange and learn from each other. And we want to increase the possibilities for the EFID network to meet even if it's virtually in the first time, and to make use of the resourceful community that you are part of. And the second EFID webinar will be open to public and will focus on people with migration background living with dementia. It will take place in September, and Louisa sent you the invitation the next month.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Anne-Marie. So we'll now start with, of course, the webinar officially, and about a little introduction also about the quality framework. So why we are intending to work on this framework. In the past, in the different workshops, the awardees had expressed that they had some difficulties, not all of course of them, that they had some difficulties to measure their work. And in this phase, and I think it's really important to have this also as a kind of result. We want as an EFID to challenge the awardees also to co-create a tool. I think it's really important to have a bottom-up, and that's what we also discussed in our steering committee, that we have a bottom-up approach to measure what is that quality framework, and how to create a flexible tool that is easy to use, but also that is a tool that is very adaptable in different contexts within Europe, to help evaluate the work of our awardees. In other words, we want to provide a common language to understand the impact of their work done across Europe, again, and starting with the co-creation with people with dementia themselves. And Emma and Rosien will help the awardees to translate this need into a framework that can use to assess the project within the different awards. So this is in short notice because, of course, there is Emma and Rosien who will explain more in detail how they will proceed in this process.
Okay, thank you very much, Saida. Before we jump into the content of the webinar, giving the floor to Rifugio and then afterwards to Emma and Rosien, I just want to say something about the Zoom function of the chat. There is a chat that can be used among panelists and among attendees. If you want to, just say something and chat with us. And I've seen that there is also an attendee who raised a hand, and in particular, let me see if, I thought Helen was raising her hand, but I wanted to give her the floor, but I think she lowered her hand. So, but hello, Helen, if you're hearing us as well. I'm glad that also Hedventil is joining, and all the other awardees that are taking part to the webinar. Matthew also wanted to say hello, I think. He raised his hand. See. Okay.
Yeah.
See. Now I think Matthew can also speak. Matthew, you wanted to say something? Not for the moment, probably. Okay, but we'll have the opportunity to ask questions later on. And now I give the floor to Molly and Marcello from Rifugio.
We're just going to share our presentation.
Yeah.
There we go. Nearly. Okay, we're ready.
Okay. So it's Marcello speaking. Thank you very much, EFID, for this big opportunity, and thanks to all the colleagues taking part in the webinar with us today. Just a few words about Rifugio. Our nursing home was established in 1898, so it means we have 120 years of age. It was called Rifugio, that means shelter, because it was because the original mission was to host people who were refused by other similar homes. Then I jump and up to the middle of the 90s of the 20th century, in which the management decided to find a more specific mission beside hosting elderly people. So the decision that was taken was that the mission was Alzheimer and people with dementia. We started the building of our so-called chain of services in the year 2000 with a daycare center. And in the years, we have developed a series of services for people with dementia and for their families, always based on observation of needs of persons. So we have a daycare center, as I told, a specific unit for people with dementia that has been enlarged several times during the years. We have another unit for the advanced stages of dementia. One of the goals of our nursing home, not always easy to reach, is that the organization must adapt to the person as much as possible and not the contrary, because the classical model is the contrary. So the person has to adapt to the organization. We are trying to do in the contrary direction. For many years, Rifugio is the point of reference for local public health organization and for public social services in hosting people with dementia. But we are not only a nursing home, not only a daycare center. That's why we are here today, I think. Our umbrella organization established in the year 2009 a home care service that also is working with people with dementia. Since 2012, we have opened an Alzheimer cafe. We have a service of support for families that is made in cooperation with public social services. And we have arrived at the EFID Award of 2014. It has been a turning point in the history of our nursing home. We will never be enough thankful for this, because it has been a legitimation that we were in the good direction and gave us the opportunity to enter in a very useful and important network such EFID is, but not only, also gave us the opportunity to enter in national Italian networks. Because maybe you don't know, but we are in a very decentralized position. We are close to the mountain, to the border with France, in an alpine valley. So we are far away from all the big centers. So at that moment, we told ourselves we must take advantage of this award. This is not an arrival point. This is a starting point. That is how we have begun with in the year 2015 with a little project about dementia-friendly community, because we have found a good cooperation from a local municipality and from stakeholders of our territory, one village in particular. And then we have begun to attend the EFID meetings. And for me, more than for Molly, that has been a revolution. It has really opened more and more my mind. I remember very well the Dublin meeting, meeting Katie and other people with dementia, taking part in the meeting, and all the concepts, not only dementia-friendly community, disseminated by EFID, rights of people with dementia, advocacy, and so on. I will never forget Helen's speech in Sofia. And another very important thing is the wonderful opportunity given by being part of this net to exchange good practices with other members of the net. Starting from 2016, we have managed a joint project with the Wijster in Kortrijk, Belgium, Ian and Patrick. That was about dementia-friendly community. So the same project done in the same way in the two different countries, with mutual visits at the end. So people with dementia during that project traveled in both countries, visiting each other. So we put together words that, believe me, in Italy are oxymoron. I mean, dementia and tourism. Since then, in our opinion, that is not an oxymoron anymore. During that project, people with dementia has been leading actors of the project, and that has been really the focus of all our recent work on dementia-friendly communities. More cooperations that we have collaborated during the years are, for instance, always with the house of the nursing home of Kortrijk. We got inspiration from their management of food. So they don't have a central unit, but they only have units kitchen. So since we are building a new building for the Rifugio, we want to test a similar approach with residents involved in preparing their own food. I have spent a whole day with my colleague Ian Goder in the Wijster to take inspiration. He will be here with Gudrun next week, and we will meet another meeting about that. Then we've got inspiration for the building of our new building, sorry for repeating, from a travel in Holland organized with Daphne Mensink. She guided me and the architect visiting different nursing homes in Holland. Then the cooperation with Compassion Alzheimer Bulgaria, the colleagues are here with us. They came here in the spring 2016. We went there the same autumn, and today we are starting a new project, a new joint project today.
So, thank you, Marcello. We just wanted to say why have we taken this particular route? Why have we worked with these particular people and or these particular groups, and where are we going? And we thought that this diagram might help a little bit because our future direction has been very much formed by the experiences that we have, or the project and experiences we've seen among the EFID awardees. And so the collaborations that we have had and the direction that we are hoping to take is based really on three things. One is that we feel we've been successful in working with people with dementia, but it's important that we underline this in everything that we do, because it's very easy to not do. And so if we put that as our number one priority, then the second priority becomes developing the various services that wrap around the people with dementia and their families with whom we're working. And slowly, in our context, we're finding out where the gaps are and helping develop new services and new initiatives which meet those needs. But rather than doing it how perhaps we had done it in the past, whereby we would call somebody and they would come to the refuge, for example, the nursing home, and deliver the service, we're going out into the community and working with communities to try and meet that need. So therefore, the benefits go in both directions. So I guess you could say it's a more deinstitutionalized approach. Obviously, it's not plain sailing, and there have been a number of challenges which I'm sure are common to many of you. One of them is changing the way we are working means it takes more time. and going at a pace which allows people with dementia to be involved and adapting the process to them does take more time, and that can sometimes cause difficulties. Another important challenge is both a personal and professional challenge of keeping going and maintaining the enthusiasm and commitment of the collaborators when effectively we're going against the tide, we're going against the current. And so it is not, the involvement of people with dementia is something that we need to say and show and repeat every time we do something. It is certainly not a given, and that can be quite tiring at times. A third challenge is what we've called putting our own house in order. And this is about the fact that it's almost easier, in our experience, to go into the community and support businesses and shops and services to become more dementia friendly and have a more participatory and rights-based approach. But we found it quite difficult bringing home these principles and methods into a nursing home which has a 200-year history. And so there is a challenge about putting our own house in order, as it were. The culture of involvement, or lack of it, here can be quite challenging, because people are not really aware of how they can involve people. And so part of what we're having to do all the time is to demonstrate to existing services how they can adapt. A further challenge is diagnosis or lack of it, or a diagnosis followed by no support, and the fact that we really see very few people in the early stages of dementia. This has been a challenge because, for example, when we see people with dementia speaking about their experiences at conferences and so on, we are not working with people who have the possibility of doing those kinds of, being involved in those kinds of projects. So we've had to develop completely different ways of involvement, which are much more experiential, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. A further challenge is the culture of projects. The way we have had to learn to work is in a responsive way rather than a prescriptive way, where obviously, because dementia progresses, the needs of the protagonists, so the people we're working with, are changing. And this is often a challenge when a project funder or a project time frame, it needs to be set at the beginning. I'm not telling you anything new. Money and resources are always a problem. But we wanted to make the point that we're a residential care centre, and so the work that we do around the community work that we do and the dementia-friendly communities work is not our main work, and so this creates another set of difficulties for us, because it's always going to be an extra and it's not going to be self-sustaining. I hope that's clear. Now, we wanted also, obviously, to talk about our successes, but rather than give you a long list of what we think are successes, we thought we would divide them into 4 different groups. And these groups reflect our responses to the challenges which we've experienced. So we will take the boxes in turn. And so we will start with box number 1, which is the demystifying, as we call it, and modelling participation and the involvement of people with dementia. So really helping people to understand better what it means. And I think that we do need to be very careful and make this central to what we do, because in our work we risk creating another tier of experts those that know how to work with people with dementia, rather than making sure that the voices of the experts are the voices of people with dementia. And Marcello will now illustrate some of the examples of what we are doing and have done.
Yeah, we have, for instance, a media partner that is a local radio. Then we are developing a project that is called social vitamins. It means working with the local councils, different councils of the villages of our valley to develop more and more local communities plans with people with dementia. Then we will formalize a working group of those people with we already work. Then you cannot see here, but believe me, this is a picture of the Italian Dementalent that has started right this morning. I want to tell you how it has been working this. In last November, Daphne Mensink, the Dutch colleague, came here to introduce the Dementalent project to an audience of managers of local health organizations, doctors, nurses, managers of public social services and social workers. And as I told you right this morning, the Italian version of the Dementalent project has begun with a man recently diagnosed with dementia who has a passion for woodworking, who has begun to attend as volunteer the workshop of a wood sculptor. I don't know if Luisa had already time to do it, but I think that she will put on the EFID Facebook that picture I was showing you from my mobile phone. So this is the outcome of the Daphne visit in last November, and we are very happy and also a little bit proud of this. This has been possible because Rifugio is putting a great commitment in building a local dementia network, and this is showing that it is working.
Thank you, Marcello. So the second box is the one about dementia-friendly communities. And one of the most important things that EFID did for us at the Refuge was, if you like, give us the names and the theoretical frameworks that describe what actually the Refuge has been doing for years, and that it enabled us to, if you like, to make a splash. And this helped us experiment a dementia-friendly community in Valpellice together with the Weester in Belgium. And after the Out and About project, then to use this as a model for scaling up dementia-friendly communities, both in Italy and elsewhere. And Marcello will pick out a couple of these examples.
Yeah, we are part of the Dementia-Friendly Community Italian network under the Federation Alzheimer Italia, that now is made by 22 communities. We were 6 when we entered that 3 years ago. So for the last 3 years, we have been recognized as a community working to become a dementia-friendly community. And after that, we are now consultants for the municipality of Pinerolo, that is the biggest city of our area, for a dementia-friendly community. In the next days, next week, we will have an example of cooperation with Jan Goder from the Weester in Kertwijk and Gudrun from Het Ventiel, because they will come here for a public meeting that is right about that project in Pinerolo, in which we are consultants. Then we will probably be contacted after the local election of the end of May from another municipality of our area, and soon we will begin another project and cooperation in Slovakia, in Bratislava, with an NGO called Socia. And then another example that we forgot to put is that we are part of another Italian net, that is the Alzheimer Fest net, that has a very similar approach of the EFID one, made by Michele Farina. Maybe some of you remember him. He came in the EFID meeting in Belgium.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, the third box then is networks, networks, networks. And I think that one of the things that EFID brought to us was understanding the importance of both the very, very local networks that we have and the international networks. And that this obviously can translate into further commitment to dementia-friendly communities, and sometimes into resources. And we have a concrete example of how this has happened here.
Yeah, we are part of a working group with the local health organization, social services, and a self-help association. And recently, also a general practitioner reached the working group. This is very important. A doctor, yes. A goal is to have in the future, not too far, we hope, a person with dementia taking part in the working group. We have tested a screening day in our area for the population, inspired by another Italian experience in close to Milano. We had planned to test one screening day. We did 3 because we had 24 places and many people called. So they were nearly 90 people calling us. So we had to make 3 days instead of 1. And now, after that test experience, the screening days in our area have become part of the system. This year, we will repeat it 4 times in different villages of our area. This is possible because every organization taking part in the local working group on dementia gives something. No one could do it alone, I'm sure about this. The goal is to develop awareness about dementia in our area, especially in terms of building together services useful for people with dementia just after the diagnosis, because we are very, we don't have a good situation in Italy at the moment. Not only the sentence, see you in 6 months, that is what is happening now, and 6 and 9 and 12 and so on for years and years and years, until the family goes into a breakdown. Because now in Italy, what really happens is that those 6 months are spent in isolation, in stigma, on a sofa watching TV. This is what we want to change.
Okay, so now we have got to the 4th success, which I'm not sure if it's really a success yet, but it's what we mentioned before about looking inwards rather than looking outwards. Because, as we said before, it's much easier sometimes to develop a rights-based approach and look at involvement when we're talking about community projects. But we're a residential care centre, and actually bringing those home, those values and those principles home, is incredibly important. And our experience of working with the Weister and other nursing homes in other countries, as well as in Italy, have given us the possibility of understanding that actually this is possible. And we wanted to give 2 examples of how we have tried to meet this challenge. And one is through our involvement in what we call the Q Europe project, which is a Erasmus Plus project with Belgium, Slovakia, Italy, and the Czech Republic. And this project is about producing a practical handbook for long-term care services based on quality principles that look at participation, empowerment, and a rights agenda, and looking at how specifically nursing homes for older people can improve on these principles. And I think that it's very important for us in this process that if you define what is important, and you can do that by looking at using a quality framework and quality principles, then you're able to improve it. But actually, even just to start discussions with staff, we have found it necessary to define what our values and principles are around these issues. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one who groans when they hear the words principles, quality, monitoring, evaluation. But I think that these things have an enormous impact on the quality of people's lives. And if we can show the impact of something, then we can make a difference to it. So as something, we approach the Q Europe project from the point of view that people are generally resistant because it's seen as bureaucratic and boring and not, it takes us away from our daily work. But actually, the handbook that we're developing that will be published in the summer is a very practical toolkit that will allow people to start discussions around this in their own organisations. And we'll keep you posted on that. I will now pass to Marcello for the last example.
For closing, yes. Rifugio is now building a new unit, as I was telling you before. We want to test similar approach of small-scale normalized living in the new build here in the Rifugio, integrated care, which will act as an experiment for changing things also in other parts in the Rifugio. And now I finish with a closing remark. We are on a very long and difficult road, but thank you to EFID. We are on Red Road. On that road, it would never been possible for us without EFID, and let me say without Molly. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Molly and Marcello. You can now stop the sharing of your screen. Thanks a lot for this insightful presentation, really interesting, and also many points and learning points that we can also take with us. And I would like now, in fact, to open it up to the participants for questions. But we already got a question from Matthew, and in fact, it was it's more a remark that he was making about the language. He says that it's better to use the terminology dementia inclusive rather than dementia friendly. And I would like to give the opportunity to Helen Rochford-Brennan, who is joining us, to maybe reply to this comment. Helen, would you like to say something?
Yes, I would. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Lovely to see you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to join you. Absolutely wonderful, inspiring story of change in Italy. It's terrific, and I'm delighted to see how the funding is being spent in a very positive way. The only comment I will make first is change does not come easy. Involving people with dementia does not come easy. So it's important that you keep plugging along and you keep trying to work with us. The reason I use the word inclusive is that we all need to be included in the community. When we talk about an inclusive, a friendly community, we forget that many of us do a lot of advocacy work on rights, like I do, fighting for the rights of people with dementia, as I'm sure many of you have heard me speak about it. And when we talk about rights, we talk about the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. So we have to, if we're going to be talking about rights, then we have to bear in mind that we have to adhere to those rights. And friendly, I'm afraid, does not commend the UN Convention on the Rights of Disability. Inclusivity does. You know, we don't hear about a multiple sclerosis friendly community, and we don't hear about a Parkinson's friendly community. I don't want to be different. Many of my colleagues with dementia do not want to be treated differently. We want to be fully included in our communities. And that is the reason that we want inclusive communities, not friendly communities.
Thank you, Helen, for this comment. You're right, and I think indeed we can start using the language, as you said, inclusive rather than friendly, even if as all the the processes. It takes time to, you know, change also the way we refer to things. Is anybody willing to reply to Helen's remark, or also are there any questions for Molly and Marcello about their presentation? Feel free to raise your hand or to use the question and answer tool that you have at the bottom of your screen.
Maybe, Louisa, I could reply to Helen, if I may.
Of course, if you want to reply to Helen, go ahead.
Hello, and I'm really glad to hear that you're with us today. I wanted to reply because I wanted to reassure you that when we give presentations, we use a part of your speech from Sofia, saying exactly what you said today. We are working so far behind where you guys are. We are still working with journalists to remove the pictures of dying people and the word suffering from dementia in national newspapers with very well-known journalists. And so we are still at the stage where we're just so happy if people talk about dementia. So you and others have been very instrumental in which we're going, and we know we know that you are the experts. We know the people we work with every day are the experts, and this is what you are telling us. And so I just wanted to reassure you that we're on the same page. We just have a very, very high staircase to climb.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. Yeah, Helen.
One, please. Can I just say?
We hear you. Yes.
Thank you so much. I want to tell you that I have some either good or bad news for you, because I'm coming to you very soon. I'm coming to your region, and I'm going. I'm coming to the Veneto region to speak about this very subject. And I hope to be able to speak to lots of your media, and because I have requested that I speak to your media as part of my coming to that region to talk about living with dementia. So I hope that it will help you in some small way to change how journalists view it.
Thank you, Helen. Is Christian also raising his hand? Maybe we can have one more question before moving to the next presentation. Christian. Yeah, you can talk now, Christian. Christian? No, okay. Maybe we can go back to him later. You can also chat or send questions, type in your question, Christian, in case your microphone maybe, I mean, it should be fine. We should be able to hear you. But yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Just so I was saying just one thing, because we invited Helen in the Veneto region. That's why she's coming in Italy.
From Novilunio, just for other attendees to know. So sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. We are awardees of EFID too. And just a remark about what Helen was saying, that we are inviting her for a really important convention, congress here in Veneto region. That is the presentation of how the Veneto region is trying to organize all the services for to support people with dementia, from the screening to the assessment, and all the process for them, for families, and from the public point of view, but also from the institutional point of view. So that's why we invited her, just to to give what Molly was saying, the impression that also people with dementia has to be part of the process, not just somebody that is receiving things, but that they are deciding, they are part of the process, and they are also organizing the services. And we'll also be involved in another event in Florence that we are organizing with a European project in June, in the co-design and co-creation of technology for people with dementia. So we are really involving her and also the IRIS Association also of people with dementia, because we feel that it's really important that to have people speaking about dementia, that are living with dementia, and they can give us their real view about how the things are going. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. It's a pity I cannot join you on all these exciting events that you're organizing or taking part to in Italy. But keep us posted. Also, Helen, it would be nice to know how it goes, and also if you have any materials to share with us, with the EFID community afterwards. I can always send it by email or post it on Facebook if appropriate, so don't hesitate to send me all the information. So just before we move to the quality framework and the presentation of Rosien and Emma, just want to ask Molly to wrap up. Molly, please, you can unmute your microphone and go ahead with the closing remarks. We don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to reopen the...
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We wanted to close then saying that it's not really about us. We're really, really pleased, and thank you for having highlighted the work and the process we've been through in the last few years. But it's really not about us. It's about the people that we work with and the protagonists of all of our work. And we wanted to also express that it's not just myself and Marcello who say that it is possible, but actually the people with dementia we're working with are saying that it is possible to live well in Italy with dementia. So I wanted to read you the words of Maddalena, who says, I don't feel ill, I feel normal. I have a normal life here, nice and without too many complications. And while it's very simple, we hope that in some way we've been able to share with you the impossibility of believing that we would be here when we started 5 years ago. And thank you to all of you for your support, and we count on it also going ahead.
So see you in Torino in the EFID meeting in the beginning of December.
What a beautiful picture.
That's nice. And I guess the awardees already know, the next EFID workshop will be in Turin on December 4th and 5th. So we are looking forward to it, and we will start soon with the registration. So you will be, you will receive more emails from me in the next weeks and months. Thank you very much, Rifugio, for your presentation, and for the attendees of the webinar, please don't hesitate to continue asking your questions using the tool that you have at the bottom of your screen. I would like now to move to the final presentation on the quality framework. So Emma and Rosien will tell us more about the process of the co-creation of this quality framework. Emma?
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I'll just get started with the objectives of the project. Is it okay? Great. So we'll get the slides up now. So I guess a lot of the key points were raised in the last presentation. I believe Molly, towards the end, mentioned that it's important to capture principles and qualities and monitoring and evaluation to demonstrate impact and an ability to learn, but also to build resilience and to enhance your sustainability, the sustainability of your project and the sustainability of you as an organization as well. And this can help towards going for more funding. It can help towards going to create partnerships. So yeah, that's just kind of a very broad introduction to why a quality framework is useful. What is a quality framework? Essentially, it will be a list of criteria that we will develop with you in order to help you to understand what is working well and what is working less well in your project, in order for you to draw lessons and to correct actions and activities along the way. It will also demonstrate evidence of effectiveness in the work and the potential impacts of your work going forward. And as already mentioned, it's also a useful tool when you're bidding for future funding to show what impact and what work you have done so far. So as we are going into this process, I would like to make it very clear that this is a co-creative process. So that means we'll be really relying on the community within EFID. So that includes an advisory group of people living with dementia, with whom we will liaise, with whom we will ask for advice, and whom we'll ask to review outputs as the process goes on. We'll also be working with the awardees, because you will be the ones who are owning this quality framework. Really, it will be an ownership that you will build over the course of this project. And I'll come back to that in 1 minute. We're also working with external experts who are working in the field of dementia and evaluation. And we're really asking them for their insights as to what works, to really broaden our scope as we try to understand what could work well for the EFID community. We're also working with EFID and the foundations, and so we will be liaising with them to understand how this could be used in the future with other awardees as well as with you, the awardees. Just a quick note, this is a co-creation process. Myself, Emma, and Rosien, my colleague, who's also on the line, are here to facilitate. So we by no means own this process. We want to be able to help you to set up a framework. We want to be able to ask the right questions, feed and analyze the information, and feed our findings back to you to help you really come up with something that works for you, that is at the level that you need in order to assess your projects. And so we will be with you all along the process. In some stages more than others, and I think we're going to get into the process now. So here's an overview of the process. We began the work in March, or the beginning of April, I believe, in the first phase, which is the design. So we've already been acquainted with some awardees and some members of the advisory board. We've taken the opportunity to use this phase to understand at a very high level what the landscape is like, so who if it is, who you're working with, what kind of projects the awardees are working on, to also speak with some members of the advisory group, to get acquainted with them, and to understand some questions around the ethical implications of such a quality framework, as well as the language that we should be using going forward. So really this phase is setting the foundation, setting the scene for the rest of the project. Phase 2 will take place between May and August. We understand that the awardees perhaps have different levels of familiarity with monitoring and evaluation tools and skills. So we recognize that some have already very well developed processes, others do not, for a multitude of reasons. So whether it's the lack of capacity or a lack of time, And again, as mentioned earlier, it's very hard to see this as being part of business as usual. So we want to help you to understand that this is just part and parcel of the projects that you're working on. So in this phase, we will be doing some data collection. We will be getting in touch with some awardees to conduct interviews. We will also be speaking again closely with the advisory group and with the foundations. Sorry, just one note on the theory of change development support. We will be holding a webinar at the end of April or beginning of June, and we will send out a doodle.
End of May, yeah.
Sorry, sorry, I'm forgetting myself already. Yes, so it will be the end of May, thank you. The end of May or the beginning of June. And yes, we'll be working closely with some awardees who have already expressed interest based on an email that Louisa sent out in April. Yes. And so we'll be in touch in due course with the options for that. And we'll give you more information later on. Then the next phase is the co-creation process. So this will take place between September and October. As we are conducting interviews and our document review, we will be building up options as to how a quality framework might look, but also what we need to take into consideration when we are finalizing it. And we will be presenting this to a select group of awardees in a workshop in Brussels in September. We will be working with, we will be identifying these awardees on a number of criteria. So essentially those who have the time and the ability to participate, those who have expressed interest. And we would also like awardees with, we'd like a mixed group of awardees, those with prior monitoring and evaluation experience and those who don't, in order that we can try and find something that works for everybody, that's easy to use, that doesn't require too much additional training to implement. And then we'll be asking you, after this has been settled, to test it at home. And this is where we come into phase 4, which is the piloting. So between November and December, we will be asking you to test out this quality framework to understand, actually, is it doing what it's supposed to do? Do you understand how to use it? Is it fit for purpose? And then at our conference in Turin in December, we will be holding a series of workshops to gather your feedback, first of all, on how it works, and then second of all, on how to improve it and finalize it. And this will include all awardees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any questions? Or Rosien, perhaps anything to add?
Maybe see if Rosien, do you want to add something to the presentation? Okay, everything is yeah. Okay, is there any questions from the awardees? Do you have any questions on the process? Or it was very clear, Emma. Thank you very much for your presentation.
I think, thank you, Emma. It's very, I think also it's very important to put this as something that's self-evaluation. It's for helping you to co-create. It's a co-creation, but it's certainly important to know that it's for helping you to share your story, to, like Rifugio is doing, looking at what their interventions are and what's working or not. And so it helps. And it's also fun, I think. It's also important to know that it's working with this kind of tools. The idea is also to have a very accessible tool that you could use very easy in sharing your story and results of your story. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are now at the closing of our webinar. I hope it was useful for you. It was really interesting for me. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Maybe Rosien is waving her hand. I see. You can talk, Rosien. Do you want to say something before we close?
I think there was a question about the time commitment, which we may need to answer. I was seeing.
Yes, I see. Sorry. Yes. Detail on the time commitment.
Yeah. For Mathieu.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, that's an excellent question, and the long and the short answer is it really depends on how much time you have, but also at which phase you can be involved. So just to give a little bit more detail on phase 2 in the theory of change, we are going to identify 6 awardees to develop their theories of change, which is an important step in developing a quality framework. And of these 6 awardees, we would expect a half a day to a day of commitment in that development process. For other awardees, we will be holding this theory of change webinar, where we will host this for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we will give you a document and a step-by-step guide on the essential components of developing a theory of change. And in your own time, if you haven't got a theory of change, you can go back and try and develop that. And we will set up clinics for throughout the month of July, where you can get in touch with myself or Rosien and discuss the elements of your theory of change, and we can help you to refine it. So again, that's it's
more an individual coaching
exactly.
that you're doing from the awardee.
Yeah. So
that's for those who don't have a theory of change in place. And
so in that phase, it really depends on your needs, and it really depends then on the time that you have to commit yourself to that. For the co-creation workshop in phase 3, so this is where we're bringing the findings from our interviews and the document review, presenting it to a select group of awardees and foundations. This workshop will take place over a day and a half.
In Brussels in September.
So this will require the day and a half of being present, but then also some travel time in between. And then throughout the month of October, we would expect that you would maybe devote, I don't know, over the course of a month, it could be up to half a day or a day in compiling the information that you need to develop the quality framework. Although, please don't hold me to that. It really depends on what the framework looks like in the end, and what it requires you to complete. And then, of course, the workshop in Turin is 2 days.
Yes.
So it's a long and a short answer.
Yeah.
Rosien, did you want to add? Great. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Not for the moment. Okay. So thank you very much to all of you for participating, and we after closing the webinar, you will receive a short automatic survey to evaluate the webinar, and this helps us to improve, of course, the series of webinars. We're also looking forward to the next one, which will be on people with dementia with a migration background, as Anne-Berenice outlined before. But please, if you have any idea, or is there any topic that you would like us to address in a webinar, or don't hesitate to send me your suggestions and your inputs. As you know, the EFID community is a very resourceful community, and we really want to make the most out of all the interesting initiatives that you are carrying out in your own context. So please approach me with any idea that you might have. I give you the floor to Saida to close the webinar, and I thank you again.
Yes, thank you. In name of the steering committee of all foundation, big thank you also to Molly, Marcello, and Tanya.
Tanya, yeah, from
also
yes.
She's there. She was also there, and I remember in Sofia we had a wonderful, wonderful ceremony. So thank you in name of all the foundations again. And as we said, there are different contexts here within our awardees, and we will take in account all those aspects within the toolkit to be sure that there will be it's not a one size fits it all. So to be sure, and it makes also a big difference if you are working in, for example, Ireland on this issue, or for another example, in Spain, we don't have any, so that's why I'm using Spain. But big thank you, and hope to see you again next soon. Or like Luisa said, if every suggestion is welcome to Luisa. And also big thank you for Luisa setting this up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.